You know. See, and we haven't tried that yet. We have to wait till the beginning of the year when insurance restarts. Because we go to chiropractor all the time, but it seems to be the same alternative.
Good.
vendor.
Lord.
They won't pay for it. My chiropractor to see. My visits are.
Oh,
Woo.
I got you with my coffee food truck.
That's employee of you.
I'm an independent
Workplace
contractor,
violence.
so I do not get the protections.
That's just a
thankfully, of the
It's just assault.
Yeah.
no plain old.
You're not helping, Robert. Why do you invite him? Comic relief.
I try to provide comic relief and I succeed most of the time, but fail.
Well, I always see you laughing, so
Oh,
I-
dude,
it's who the relief is for, right?
I say jokes that make myself laugh, and I say things that really resonate with me.
Yeah. The
Self-coach
voices in
laugh.
his head are funny.
Best line ever.
Self-coach a
You
lot.
can say it in your head and it's vibrating.
If only that wasn't a joke. Truly, one of the best conversations Wade and I ever had was he actually was like, he said that, and it made sense because he's like, something I said on Saturday really resonated with me. It was awesome. I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. Because you've all done it. You've all said something that you didn't know that you were thinking until you said it, and then you're like, that's so good.
That's profound.
Right? I had no idea.
I actually believe what I'm saying.
Right? Yes. Yes. So, hello. How is everybody?
Spectacular.
Spectacular. Very good.
Much better.
Welcome to, yes, thank you for people getting healthy. Bunch of stuff to go over. You guys all realize it's December?
Oh, yeah.
This year is all but over. And so we have a bunch of stuff to do. Just a couple quick announcements. No AAA'z night this Wednesday, but Saturday. And then AA'z night the following Wednesday. So we've got Saturdays going throughout. I don't remember the day Christmas is.
There's a
Well,
Friday.
Friday. So then we won't have Saturday the
26th.
26th.
So we won't have off night?
And we'll have AA'z night though. So we'll have AA'z night the 30th or whatever.
What
with
about
that.
the 23rd? Probably not.
No,
Okay.
no, it's the
So just the
every other week.
16th and the
The
30th.
16th and the 30th.
And then are we going to every other week next year? Or are we going back?
We're going back.
Back to full,
January 13th will be the first AA'z night of the year, and then we'll go every. Yes, no, we are poised and ready to go. And so there's a bunch of things that we've got to obviously work on. But there's a lot that we've gotten done, and so we want to make sure that we keep things in perspective. But kind of the fundamental pieces of what's going on, right? Is that we've broken this all down. And so I wanted to have, so it's interesting here for a second. So I want to have the beginning of a conversation, and then something's hit me, and so I'm going to ask for a little latitude on this conversation, right? Because this is kind of clumsy, and I've been working on it. And I normally discuss this stuff with my wife, and she's been ill, and so we haven't had this conversation, and so we're going to go through. So, but I've been getting better at getting things cleaned up before I deliver them, but I wanted to kind of have this conversation this morning. So one of the conversations to have is, what business are we in? Kind of as an overview, what business are we in? And we've kind of put this down. But Cindy, what business are we in? What overall business do we run?
Distribution.
We're in the distribution business. Okay. So a lot of us know that sentence. We're in the distribution business. But the reality of this is, what does that actually mean? And what does it mean to be in the distribution business? Right? Because, we're distributing things, right? But at the end of the day, every business is in the distribution business, right? At some point, right? The guys at the car lot, if you're a car salesman, aren't you in the distribution business?
Yeah.
I mean, you're in the sales business, but you're distributing something, right? You got cars, you're distributing it. right? If you're in landscaping, you're distributing services, right? So the reality is that if we're not really clear, this is just a fancy way of saying something, right? But it really isn't just a fancy way, because we could be in Primerica, we could be in the sales business, right? Right? We could be in the sales business. We could be in the insurance sales business. That is an option to be in, right? To come in and say, hey, we've got to hit our numbers, we've got to write, we're going to go in and we're going to sell insurance. We could very easily be in the sales business. Does this make sense?
Mhm.
We also could be in the financial advisor business, right? We could be in the financial services business, right? You could be an expert at financial services, and so you could hold yourself out as an, you need a blanket or something? You wanna- Thank you. One of the things we all have to recognize is we all have impact. Some of us forget that we have impact. I'm up here and I'm trying to be serious, and Tony's over like this. It's really hard to give a talk, right? When you're in the audience, and look, if your tummy's not doing well and you're trying to hold back and you're like all grimacy face, just because as a speaker, you don't know, but it affects, right? So it's just one of those things to remember, kind of the influence and impact we all have on each other. So looking like grimace is not a good thing if I'm trying to have a serious talk here for a second. All right. But we could be in the financial services. Wait, when you and I started, right, and kind of going through, right, it was very easy to go, like, from a credibility standpoint, right, to be in financial services, right? There's nothing wrong with any of these kind of things, but the choices make impact. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. Let's say you're in your mind, you're in the financial services business, right? What do you do? Like, why is that important? What kinds of conversations do you have if you're in the financial services business?
Money.
You talk about money.
Well, and you also, if you think you're in the financial services business, you look for large sums of money, because that's how you make the most money, is the most you have under management.
Yeah,
Okay.
who are you servicing?
Okay, so who are you servicing, right? Large sums of money. How do you dress?
Tie, maybe, polo.
Tie.
Right? You got to look a business professional, right? Why? Because there's a standard of expectation. Who are you competing with if you're in the financial services industry? Other people in the financial services industry, right? Right? So there's a standard, there's a perception of who that is. What kinds of questions are you asked and are expected to answer if you're in the financial services industry?
You have to know about financial services.
Right? You got to know about the products in the market. When someone comes to you and they're like, so how does China have an impact on the US markets? Like, if you're in the financial services industry, you have to know that answer. Why? Because it's all 2015's been about. The impact of China on the US and world economies is the answer. It's the big question. Cindy, do you have any idea the impact of China on the US economy? On the US economy?
I don't.
Do you care?
No.
No. Right? I don't know. I'm a senior vice president at OSJ, and I couldn't formulate a coherent sentence on the topic in this standpoint. No, I had to, I would. Everything would be on computers and laptops, and we'd be using pencil. Why? Because that makes choices and decisions. Does that make sense? How important is it if someone has a question that you particularly solve their problem? Right? If there's a challenge with their accounts, or there's something going on, how important is it that you're the person that specifically handles their situations and issues? If you're in the financial services industry and the expert.
It's a personality business.
It's a personality business. Does that make sense? So there's nothing wrong with it, but that's interesting, right? Because the type of business we're in determines a lot of different choices and decisions. Right? The same thing if you're in the sales business. If you're in the sales business, right, how good at communication do you have to be? right? Because you have to be good at finding people to see and then getting them to hear you. And so that's the major skill of the sales business. Now, and the distribution. So the question that I ask when I kind of come, like when I break these down and I'm like, okay, well, where's the real distinction? Like where does this, how do we actually figure out what business we're in and how this goes? Starts with the question actually that Bella asked. Where do your clients come from? Where do your clients come from? The answer to this question will guide us a little bit as to what we're doing and then the skills that we've got to kind of cultivate. So Cindy, if you think about your business, right, we think about what we're going to do in 2016, where do your clients come? Where do you think your clients are going to come from? There's no right or wrong answer here, guys. We're fleshing this out. And again, I started this conversation by saying, give me a little latitude on terms of clarity and where we're going to go. I think it'll be really clear by the time we're done. I try to be clear at the beginning when I'm really good at this, but I'm not. This is the first time I'm vocalizing this, so we're going to be clear when we're done, and it might be clumsy along the way. Okay. So Cindy, where do you think your clients are going to come from?
Usually people that I see every day or every week.
Okay.
People that I'm around.
So we have a title for that. What would that title be for that group of people?
Or I want to say hot.
Okay. Okay, so they come from your hot market. Tony, how about you? So your clients are going to come from your scout team? From your scout team and farm system. Wait, how about you?
Well, I know where I want them to come from, but they don't come from there. So they come from who I personally talk to. So my market, basically.
Okay, from your market.
Yeah.
But for 2016, you know the answer. You know where we're going with this. We haven't talked about it. This is really good. I'm actually really excited because that warmed the cockles of my heart. I don't know what cockles are, but they just got warmed right there by hearing Wade have conflict. Because he actually knew that there's a conflict. Wait, where are your clients going to come from in 2016?
They're going to come from basically my associates, basically my advocates and associates. So not people that I talk to directly, but
Okay, perfect.
it's my recommendations, basically.
Okay. Okay, so we're on the right path. Can someone give me specific language, please? We have very specific language for where this is going to come from, and this would be really, really fun.
His allies.
Okay, so this is all good language. Huh? So from your players, rookie camp. Okay. The difference between your hot market, your scout team, your farm system, and your rookie camps is the difference between sales and distribution. We already talked about the difference between financial services and non-financial services. But if you notice, we kind of left sales and distribution open. Right? Why? Because as a mindset, this will determine what it is that we're doing. Now, how do we get our players, Cindy? By absolutely developing our hot market and our farm system. Right? And so this absolutely feeds that. So both are right. Right? And there's no right or wrong, but the bulk of our business as we grow and we build this, right, Cindy, right, this is going to be a big year for you, right? 2016 is we've got a lot of goals for what we want to be able to do, right? So you and I have talked, you talked with Robin, like we want to get to a place where this economically in 2016 carries a significant amount of your financial life, right? It's the greatest part-time opportunity in the beginning, but moving down that road, that's where we want to be able to go, right? Now, we're building the greatest part-time opportunity in the world, right? So for a part-timer, building their business from quarter to quarter and developing their bullpen, their farm system is absolutely the fundamental key. But the purpose for doing this, what business are we in? What is our number one product?
People.
Well,
Relationship.
those are our number one priorities are the people and relationships. But a product, like if we're in a business and we're marketing a product, like there's a particular concept about the concept of marketing a product. There's business that's done, there's a transaction that's done, there's an objective, there's a buyer and a seller, there's a movement up.
Our product actually is that Primerica can be valuable in their life.
Well, our business is our number one product,
Business.
right? Because we're raising entrepreneurs. That doesn't, let's make sure this is perfectly clear here, that doesn't minimize the value of our financial needs analysis, that doesn't minimize the value of our insurance or protection, that doesn't minimize the value of our investments, it doesn't minimize anything. But what we know is our products will get a family financially secure. Our business has the opportunity to get them on a game plan for financial freedom. They're both valuable, right? But if our business is distribution, then our number one product is the business. Why did we create the gap position? We created the gap position in order to broaden the people that we could attract. Why are we creating the greatest part-time opportunity in the history of the world rather than building a business for exceptions? Because it broadens the people that we can attract. The more people that we have a part of our story, one way or the other, the more influence and impact we can have on the masses. If we have 1,000 people licensed part-time, barely doing anything, but they're licensed and they understand what they're doing, when they get into a conversation, they have a financial vested interest, right? They're paid advocates. Our part-timers that want to be part-time, our gaps, they're paid advocates. They're people that will tell this story. I tell this for free. I'm just glad I don't have to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Why? Because we're in the distribution business, so the broader range that we can go, the more support systems, the more environment, the more opportunities that we've got. Yes?
They're almost lobbyists in that way.
Yeah.
Almost in terms of paid advocates. I never thought about it that way.
So now all of a sudden it starts to realize what is it that we're building for? Because I spent a lot of this year driving the lineup into your brains. And I had a lot of people go, why are you when are we gonna learn to close a sale? Why do you keep driving the lineup into my head? Right? Because our business is distribution, when we understand what it is we're building toward, without the lineup, I can't have this conversation clearly. You know how I know that? I've been trying to have this conversation clearly for 2 decades. And it's always been contentious. This is the least contention I've ever had on this conversation because there's a clean space for us to go, which makes me feel like I'm so excited. Some of you are. This is the challenging conversations. But so I want to make sure that we really get this down. Okay. So we've got our game day player. Our game day player runs from quarter to quarter, right? Basically, the goal of that is 5 to 7 people on their bullpen, 10 to 25 people on their now list, and 25 to 50 people on their then list. And the goal for the quarter is for this group of people to see these people, move these people to the bullpen, and move these people to our now list and add more then. So in a quarter, a part-timer is going to be on hopefully 5 to 7 appointments a quarter, So is that an overwhelming, daunting, revolutionary, like changing? No. They're talking to people in their lives. They're meeting people in their lives, and they're introducing this, and they're slowly developing the skills to be able to constantly do this, so that at the next quarter, these people are here and they have a new 5 to 7 and they're constantly feeding. And then over a year, kind of a game plan of people actively running this, our part-timers actively running this. They're going to increase their skills, they're going to develop their market, and there's going to be this plan. That make sense? But what's the purpose of seeing these 5 to 7? So if the goal of seeing these people is business, that's step one. We can help them. So there's profit. What's the other goal of seeing these people? What are we going to do in this conversation?
Well, if our number one product is our business, we're going to sell our business in terms of the
Yeah. So what we're going to help them with business, and we're going to ask them, look, where do you fit? Our part-timers that are building from quarter to quarter, our game day players can get really good at explaining what we do and helping folks and saying, where do you see yourself fitting? We don't have to become great recruiters. We get to find out, where do you see yourself fitting? It's funny. I had yesterday a lightning bolt thing. I'm hoping one of the last Sandlot moments, but I doubt it. But so, a week and a half ago, I sat with somebody on the team and walked them through, and we got to the bullpen conversation and say, look, and basically the base of the bullpen conversation is, you sit there and say, the base of today is for you to get to know me and me to get to know you and find out if there's a reason to go to the next step. Now, you all heard me say this a million times. I have said that a million times. Literally, every single time. That's my closing question. That's how I've closed every recruit, every conversation. The basis of today is for you to get to know me to get to know you, and find out there's a reason to go to the next step. Can any of you hear the you're in or you're out in that conversation? Is there a basis for us to go to the next step? No. Well, that's okay, because Primerica is not for everybody. So I just transitioned into the scout team. I asked the you're in or you're out, and if you're not in, that's okay too. Versus what my beautiful bride's been doing for 2 or 3 or 4 months that I couldn't hear until I heard her say it to somebody else like 2 weeks ago, and it went into the crock pot. Like, you ever make like stew, and in the morning you throw raw carrots and tomatoes and all this other stuff in the thing, and raw meat in the thing in the crock pot, you leave the house, and then it doesn't smell like nothing, and then you come home at like 5 o'clock, and the house like, boom, it smells amazing, and the carrots like, y'all know, that's my brain. 2 weeks ago, I heard this floating carrot, and went right into my head. I'm like, oh, it's interesting. I'm walking along my day. I don't know nothing about nothing. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, holy crap! The basis of today isn't for me to get to know you and you get to know me and find out if there's a reason for us to go to the next step. The basis of today is for me to share what it is and find out where you see yourself fitting. Because, see, we can't do this alone. We're going to have people in our lives that understand and support what we're doing, and we call them advocates. There are going to be people in our lives that can get emotionally involved in what we're doing and realize we can't do it alone. If they keep their eye out for amazing people, and there are going to be some that want to get actively involved and say, you know what, I want to put myself in a position to change my life and the lives of the people around me. Based on what we're talking about, where would you see yourself fitting? Right? That's what we're doing. And I commit and I acknowledge these absolutely ridiculously stupid things in front of you guys, and I always will, because you're going to suck at things, and it is okay to suck at things. It is okay to be a complete raving moron, because the fact that I've still been doing that is the dumbest that, like, it doesn't actually get any dumber. We've been doing this for 6 years, and the final closing question was still based on an old premise. Like, that's pretty dumb.
It wasn't on purpose. It's just what I do because I don't know better.
And it wasn't like, but that's where you learn. And I'm committed. I mean, but it's okay that you gotta understand, like,
Yeah.
well, who cares?
Well, and then it's so much better to say it that way because there's no losing for us then. It's just where you fit.
And we're not trying to make a space
I
for
don't
them.
want to force you to
Yeah.
fit somewhere.
Can I
Yeah.
say
Okay.
that?
Super.
Oh, what I was gonna say is until you actually said that aloud up there, I hadn't even put those two and two together because I've used that forever. And when you said it up there, all of a sudden I went, before, as you're saying the sentence, that's where all of a sudden I went, whoa, wait a second here. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so interesting.
That was so hard for me to say. Like every time I would like even write it out, I'd be like, this doesn't make sense. Like
Yeah.
I had the hardest time learning you, me, you, and would always say it backwards.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense.
What's my next step?
So
That's what I would say.
the fun thing, and this one is just for free to kind of go through and talk about this, but it lets us know what business we're in. Hey, Cindy, where do you want your clients to come from? I want my clients to come from when we tell these people we're going to get people that say, my God, maybe I want to be a part of this. They join, they turn in their IBA, they go on the roster. We help them with their hours, their quizzes, and their exams. We get them emotionally connected to the crusade and the support system. Then they pass their test. They're excited, right? We then put them into rookie camp. So I want you to think about it. Let's just say that you're a game day player, right? So you, the two Utes, you've got your 5 to 7 on the bullpen that you're going to see in Q1. But you've got 2 players that enter rookie camp. You're going to see these 5 to 7. We're in the distribution business. How we distribute our products and services is a key to what's going on. If you and I think that we're going to constantly meet and see and cultivate enough relationships to write enough business to be able to keep ourselves, to actually get ourselves full time based on our market, based on the people we meet, based on the referrals that we get to do business, we're in the sales business. But we get to constantly see brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins. And brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins. Now, how good at sales do you have to be if you're sitting with brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins? So Wendy, Tony's partner, right, passed her test. Wendy's been talking to her parents for 2 months, that moment. So Wendy's like, okay, we're going to meet on Sunday, but I got to work. So my dad said, why don't we meet in a week when he's off work? So Wendy's completely coordinating this entire appointment. What am I going to do? I'm going to show up. Right? That's what I'm going to do, is show up. How good at sales and marketing does Wendy have to be to get her parents to sit down? No. How good at sales and marketing does Wendy have to be? In case, if we're able to help her parents, I don't know if we're going to be able to help her parents, but if we're able to help her parents, Wendy's going to get paid, is she not? Because she's got her license. How good at sales and marketing does Wendy have to be in order to make profit from that appointment? Does she have to be overly good? I'm doing the work. How good do I have to be if I'm sitting with Wendy's parents? Do I have to be a fancy, great talker? Or do I have to be able to communicate what it is we're doing? Because it's Wendy's parents. If we can help them, they want her to help them.
Well, yeah, that's it, because Wendy's the person that gets paid on her license. It actually, your skill level actually has to is low, can be lower than it is if you're training Wendy and you're getting paid your skill level exclusively, your skill level has to be a step or 2 higher to be able to navigate that obstacle. But if it's not, you don't have to even be that good. You'd be like, well, I convinced you need this. Is it okay if you get this and your daughter gets paid? That's a pretty good, or your brother or your sister, your aunt or your uncle. That's a pretty good. There's not a lot of skill there needed.
Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So it allows us now. There are people that think about this and go, oh God, that means I have to be a great recruiter, and I don't know if I can be a great recruiter. What we've got to get you is a good two things have to happen. One, you've got to become a great communicator, a great storyteller, and you have to have belief in what it is we do and how we do it. And so I want to have someone come up and speak right now, because this has been a kind of a good week for my friend Tony, kind of working on this, and we'll kind of build towards this to this moment. So this will kind of fill in some blanks. So let's all hear from the awesome Tony.
Morning.
Morning.
So I've had this transition for about, say, 3 weeks. And there's something that I love, and it's about the culture that we're building. It's the culture that we're creating. And as I've been working with Brad over a month and a half, I realized that I was stuck somewhere. I was stuck in basically believing that the only way for my family to be secure and for me to be secure was to do the business. That's it. If I didn't do the business, there's no way that my kids are not going, my siblings are not going to college or not going to go, and my mother was not going to retire. And Brad and I, Brad was always telling me, do your F&A. I didn't value the F&A. It just went out the other way. Until he told me again, I'm like, well, there's something missing. And so after doing the F&A, that's when I started realizing, wait a minute, my debt-free day will be 2022. And I'm like, I've been trying to get over that for the past 3 years. There's a problem. So as I was open to it, and I was listening to Brett, I finally wanted to come up with something better. And so what I did, I went to his office and I kind of wanted to put another person in. Well, let's go back to 2 weeks ago when we were talking about the scenarios of different families, whether the dad were to pass away or the mother were to pass away, and what priority are we going to put in, what are we going to tell them to be able to secure. And that's when it hit me. That's when I realized if something were to happen to me, my mother would not retire. My kids would not go to college. They would just have to get loans to be able to go to school. So the business is not the only way to be financially secure, and that's the value of the F&A. And so Brett and I, we sat down and put a game plan together. And that's when I realized that this is far beyond than what it really is. And knowing that having a game plan together, not only did I start believing in the business being the opportunity, but to even have a plan for my kids and to even have a plan, for example, emergency fund and my retirement fund. And so if I want to create wealth, if I want to be financially free, that with the income that I'm making, with the extra income that I have from the business, I get to supplement it to my retirement fund and to my emergency fund and let it create itself. And so that's the breakthrough that I've been having.
So, when you say it to your head and say it down there, it's different than when you say it up here, huh?
Yeah.
Right? And so that's a skill. And so a lot of what we're going to be doing, we're going to work on some of those skills. Do you mind if I share some of the things that I think are important too to kind of drive this together? It's because when Tony and I sat down, so here's a couple things. Tony's 21 years old, not married, no kids, no house, so the value of a financial needs analysis to someone who's living at home that has a job, can we all agree, conceptually, we've all been 21, we're not planning retirement at 21, right? And so, we sat down, we've had the value, we've had the conversations, but I think one of the really critical things that Tony talked about was, in his mind, that really the only value was the business. Now, if there's companies like Amway and Herbalife and a lot of these multi-levels, the value is the business. Like the way someone gets free conceptually is the business. The product is hopefully positive, but almost unnecessary. They just need to have a product that they can market to be able to subsidize their business. Does that make sense? And so what's easy to do is for people to think Primerica is very, very similar. Well, when we talk about the access gap, is realize that our products and services change people's lives. Like what we do, if someone buys vitamins from Herbalife, they're not going to get rich by buying vitamins from Herbalife. They might be in better shape, I don't know, right? But at the end of the day, like if they don't take advantage of the business, their economic future doesn't change. Here, if someone doesn't take advantage of the business, their economic situation can fundamentally change. And so we get to start prioritizing the services that we have as impact. Well, we're going to get cleaner and get stronger and get better at that, but it was important for Tony to be able to talk about that because that's important for us to know that there might be people that we're working with that value the business over the products, the same as there are people that will value the products over the business. And understanding that and being okay with that is kind of an important piece. It's not about making someone feel wrong for thinking that. It's about understanding that that's where their perspective is, because we can't change someone's perspective until we know where they are. Does that make sense? And so that's important one. Important two is when Tony and I sat down and I went over his F&A, right? Because he's starting to go out. He went on his own and helped the family, right? So he's starting to learn the F&A. The challenge is that, let's take this step back. If you only value the business as a priority, how effective at the products and services are you going to be? Like there's conflict there, right? So now it's easy to market the products because it's a way to be compensated, but we could miss the true impact of what's going on. And so it was an opportunity for us to go, okay, now let's drive in the power and the impact of what this is. Does that make sense? So Tony started working on the F&As and started doing stuff. We're going to do some more stuff with that today, and we're going to kind of highlight some things. And we're over the next couple weeks, we'll work on this. But he'd gone and done a couple F&As, and he came to me and he's like, so here's a sample one. Here's one. What would you do? And we walked through a couple kind of options, and I watched his mind kind of go, oh, this is a little bit more important than I thought it was. True? Okay. So then we pulled out his. And Tony, like, if you have ever had debt or you have debt, you're paying it off. You have a strategy, right? Everybody who has debt has a strategy. The strategy might be pay the bill when it comes in if I can. But that's the strategy. And if you've ever gotten to a place where you want to get out of debt, you look at your bills and you're like, okay, here's how I'm going to approach this, right? So it's not that no one's ever had a strategy, but the strategy is traditionally based on experience or lack thereof, or no expertise of where things go. So we're constantly figuring it out. So Tony had a debt strategy, right? He, in fact, had a pretty aggressively feeling one. He was pretty staunch in his debt strategy. This is what I'm going to do, and he could explain why he was going to do it. Does that make sense? When I explained to him the benefit, when I asked him what's the benefit of him doing that, he couldn't explain the benefit of it, but he could explain what his strategy was and his reasoning for the strategy. Does that make sense? But the benefit of the strategy was where the breakdown began. And so we sat down and we said, okay, well, here, let's plug it in and let's see a different strategy. Let's explain it. We plugged in the F&A, and he went from his strategy being out of debt in 2022 to the F&A, which took about 11 seconds, to 2017. 16 months from right now, Tony's going to be completely and totally debt-free with no more money. Zero money out of his pocket, more than he's doing now 4 years sooner. Like, that's pretty cool. And so Tony's like, man, that's awesome. Right? And then we started looking at the different strategies and the different things that's going on. But what's important to this is that over the last week, we've gone over this conversation multiple times, and it's starting to get dialed in. That the impact of what we have makes a tremendous difference. And so one of the things that we want to do, and when he's in a place and he wants to talk about his specific plans and some of the different things, I'll let him kind of share that, right? But what it does is it allows us, we have amazing tools to be able to help people open up the possibilities of what they can do. And so we want to be able to kind of dive into that. And so one of our tools is that we want to be able to do that. But the way we're going to get stronger and better at this, so I want to kind of go back to the one, and then we'll kind of piece this together, is as we look at where do our clients come from? See, Tony had no plan. Okay? Now, Tony, you have a plan. How are you going to make that plan happen?
I'm gonna make the plan happen.
Yeah. What do you have to do in order to make the plan that we set up happen? Whose?
Mine.
What's the first thing we have to do if we're going to set up, because one of the things we did for Tony, so I'm going to explain this concept, is we said, okay, Tony could set aside a certain amount of money, and we're like, okay, one of the things we want to do, so he had $65 extra for his savings portion. I'm like, okay, well, let's do $40 into his emergency fund and $25 into his retirement account. Is Tony going to get wealthy on $25 going into his retirement account? No. But Tony has a full-time job that pays his bills, right? How much money does he have to make from Primerica in order to eat? Zero. Why? Greatest part-time opportunity in the history of the world. How much money do you need to make in Primerica to make any money? Zero. So he said, Tony, what if we did this? Tony makes X dollars amount at his month, or month at his job. So Tony, what if we did this? Primerica has something called a MAP, a money accumulation program, where what we can do is we can set up percentages of your Primerica earnings. So let's say in January or December, Tony makes $1,000. Primerica can do a couple things. They can send him a check for $1,000. They can directly deposit $1,000 into his account. Or we can set up percentages where let's say we say 25% of all money earned funds his retirement account. So now all of a sudden Tony makes $1,000 this month, but he didn't contribute just $25 to his retirement account. He actually contributed $275 to his retirement account. But how much money did it cost him out of his income? 25 bucks. So now he's saving now I have a question. If a 21-year-old saves $275 a month for his retirement, does he have a little bit better opportunity to create financial security for his family?
Yes.
Yeah. But if the $1,000 goes into his checking account and now he has to contribute $275 to his retirement account, is he going to do that? No.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yeah.
We said we could take the other $75, 75%, and put it into your emergency fund. Why? Does he need any Primerica money? No. Can he access this? Yeah, it's linked to his checking account. So he can put the money in, take the money out. Right? If he wants to go out, they said, look, if him and Wendy set a quarterly goal and they say, if we do this, we're going to take a Tuesday night and go to Santa Barbara. Can he take a Tuesday night and go to Santa Barbara, take a couple $100? Absolutely. He can fund a lifestyle from that experience. But Tony has an income that he makes at his job. Every month, every time he saves, let's say I'm going to pick a number. Let's say it's $5,000. The moment Tony has $5,000 saved, doesn't that buy him 1 month earlier out of his job? If he has $15,000, doesn't that buy him 3 months earlier out of his job? Because of his job's his cover fire, but if he's able to replace his job cover fire with his opportunity savings cover fire, it's the same thing as he has the ability to grow. He has the ability to build something for his family. Does this make sense? Y'all with me so far? So this is a pretty cool part of the plan, right or wrong? That this is life-changing. Cindy, where's business come from? Tony also realizes, okay, he's going to write, he needs protection, right? He wants to make sure that if he is his mom's retirement plan. So what he talked about is he is his mom's 401k. Yeah, that's just the reality. I love Norma. She's nice. She's beautiful. She's amazing. She doesn't have any money saved. She doesn't have enough money saved in order to retire, right? Tony is her retirement plan. Period. End of story. So he's going to build a business. He's going to get free, and he's going to take care of his mom. Problem is, if he dies tomorrow, what happens to his mom's 401k retirement plan and his son? It's gone. That's a legitimate thing. So all of a sudden, we're like, Tony, I'm not telling you that you need to be your mom's 401k, but when you tell me you're going to take care of your mom, if you pass away, we have conflict. For a little bit of money, we can protect that conflict. Does this make sense? So we've got to make sure that there's some insurance taken care of, and we've got to protect. Y'all with me? Started this conversation by, where do your clients come from? Continue. In order to facilitate this plan for Tony, what has to happen? What's that?
It's gotta be his own plan.
It's got to be his own client. So business has to be done. The challenge is, does Tony have a securities license right now? No. We don't write up ourselves on life insurance, and Tony doesn't have a securities license right now. So whose client does he have to be? Mine. Where does business come from? Hold on. Where does business come from? Tony's technically his first appointment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't make
I
sense.
don't understand.
Okay. Our business, if this was 8 months ago and Tony just started and this was valuable, would we have had this conversation 8 months ago? Yeah, but Tony's a 21-year-old kid. At 21 years old, does Tony see the value of all this when he first shows up? No. So if I try to give him this 8 months ago, if I sit down and I'm like, we got to do this, Tony's like, you're trying to sell me business. You're trying to sell me stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's not valuable. What's valuable is creating a space for him to hear it and be able to understand the value. And at the same time, I'm in a for-profit business, right? Where does business come from? It comes from the ability to grow your team. Tony's first appointment was with Tony. His first real appointment that he just did was with himself. Or one of his own top 10. Is this making any sense? Tony, if Tony would have been sitting with somebody else, this would have gone through. So, did I explain that okay? No, I'm missing.
I think some of the confusion is just because Tony's been on several appointments.
Correct.
So it's not technically Tony's first appointment, so that's where the confusion's happening.
It's not his first appointment, but it's a pretty important appointment for Tony.
Part
So-
of Tony's top 10 is Tony.
Yeah, Tony's part of Tony's top 10.
We often forget that we're part of our own top 10.
If it hasn't
Each
been done.
player, if it hasn't been done prior to you getting there.
And so, but what happens now with this conversation, Cindy, is Tony understands his business so much better. How much better is Tony going to be across the kitchen table when he understands the impact of a plan for him?
It's also a little different with Tony based on Tony's age, because a lot of the players that we'll talk about have already done an FNA because that's how we got them
That's
here
what
to
got
begin.
him in, and that's where they're credit.
So this is sort of recognizing this is a little bit of a millennial path when we've got other millennials, right? When we've got other folks that are younger and
Now
not
he
with a
has his own
family
story.
yet.
And now he has his own story.
Now you have your
He
own
will
story.
see that value. Where this came from, and the premise of this is if we don't see the value in what it is we're doing, we're not going to communicate that value.
Well, I think also too is Tony, do you think if you wouldn't have been exposed to America that you would be saving for your retirement, starting to save for your retirement now,
No.
right? So how incredible is that? Like that's incredibly valuable. Like no matter what happens to Tony, if Tony, whatever he decides to do, if he decides to move to Alaska and become a fisherman, and that's what I want to do, he'll be saving for his retirement. His life has changed in 40 years from now because of this business. He doesn't have to worry about eating.
That's fundamental change in our impact. That's what we need to do. Yeah.
I think also like understanding the value when you're delivering it to somebody, it's not more of just a sale, it's more of what the plan is and what you provide.
Because you saw value for yourself.
It's the information.
You're not just speaking the words, they have meaning now.
Now it's
So we can remind ourselves of our plan. When I sat down with Cindy, right, when I was in your house, the approach to saving now is the tools. That's an unbelievable thing that we have access to. Sometimes we forget that when we look at our list. Sometimes when we look at our list, we think about, oh, are they going to think that I want to make a sale? Versus the only way this actually happens for Tony is these accounts are actually opened. But the opening of the accounts are at the service of the plan for his life. We get to facilitate the plan with the accounts and the services, not sell the products.
I was just thinking, I think what you said, and maybe everyone didn't pick up on it, I don't know, is it's not that it's his first appointment, it's that it's the most important appointment, it's the most valuable appointment, because it's going to be where everything else comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Because that mind shift of what you get when you do your own is so important.
And what we get to get good at, and one of the biggest values is the ability to communicate that shift.
Exactly.
And so the next skill that we've absolutely got to work on is how do we get great at communicating our shifts. And so Ms. Robin is going to come and talk about our communication.
Now I know what I'm doing. When Brett and I, we'd like to coordinate, right, what we're doing when we go into the communication trainings. And I haven't been my full self this week. And I said to Brett, so what am I doing training on? And he said, you'll know after you see my presentation. And I'm like, oh, now I know what I'm doing training on. Which is all good. Get that out of there. So, good morning, everybody. It's very interesting. On my way here, I was listening to business radio, because that's what I listen to, because I'm a big business dork. And the head of HR for DuPont was on. Remember DuPont? They have like all the servingware, like massive, huge, multi-billion-dollar company. And the head of HR for DuPont said he had an MBA intern. And the MBA intern interviewed him and interviewed all of the C-level folks at DuPont. So the CEO, the chief executive officer, the chief financial officer, the chief operations officer, and the chief marketing officer. And every single one of them, independently, without any collaboration, when he said to them, what % of your job is strategy and what % of your job is execution, said the exact same thing. 10% strategy, 90% execution. 10% strategy. Largest companies in the world, most successful companies in the world. 90% execution across every vertical in the company. That means that when you think about your Primerica business and you think about what you're doing during a week, you want to think about you're spending 10% on planning and 90% on doing. Planning becomes so much easier than doing that I think we end up spending 90% on planning and 10% on doing. And the only way that you actually have progress is from the doing. Now you have to have the right planning. Because if the 10% is in the wrong place, then the doing, all the doing in the world is not going to make the difference, right? That's why it's accountability on the plan. So when you look at your week, I want you to think about what are the hours that you're dedicating to your business. And in that time frame, you're spending 10% on planning and 90% on execution. And it might end up being a little different, but I know if I tell you 90%, then you'll be doing more than you're doing now. And it's true, right? Top corporations in the world, 10%, 90%. So that's what we need to focus on. And what is doing in our business? It's communicating. That's why we have these communication trainings. That's why these communication trainings are going to become better and more specific and more modularized, because our entire business is communicating. Whether you're sending an email to a frozen, or you're sending a text to a warm or a hot, you're sitting down for a coffee, you're having a strategy session with a game day player, every step of our business is the ability to communicate something. And we've already had the conversation that people receive information best through storytelling. So we need to become the greatest storytellers on the planet. And the way we become the best storytellers on the planet is by practicing. Because storytelling is a skill, like everything else that we are building in this business. So doing for your business, apart from actually sending an email to a frozen or having a coffee with a hot, is practicing storytelling with anybody and everybody in your life. That is part of your doing. Because that's the only way that you can become an expert in storytelling, right? The only way to master it, and then we can teach it. So we introduced the concept of planning for our storytelling when we introduced AIM, right? AIM said the first thing we want to do when we're going to tell a story is know our audience. Think about who you're talking to. What's important to them? What could move them? What do they care about? What's your intent? What's your goal of the story that you're going to tell? And then what's your message? What are the words that you're going to use to tell that story? Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. When we're sharing an impact story, which is really about sharing a lesson that we've learned or that someone we know in our business has learned, we have a beginning and a middle and an end. And the beginning is usually what the lesson was. We start off with what's the big aha. Oh my God, I had the most amazing experience. I figured out that I can get out of debt 3 years earlier than I thought. That's a pretty big aha, huh, Tony? Oh my God, I had the most amazing experience. I figured out that I can actually start saving now and I can be a cash millionaire by the time I retire and I don't have to think about it again. That's a pretty big aha, right? That's where I am. This is what I know. Now I'm going to back into how I got there. What was my trigger? What's an example of an application of that lesson? This is my I was. You know, I've been saving, you know, I had some debt out there. I mean, we all have debt. And I thought I had a really good plan in place. I was going to get there by 2020. But by sitting down and actually doing a needs analysis, I discovered that I can get there 3 years later. And that same money that I was going to keep paying to the credit card companies, I can now pay to myself towards my retirement and emergency fund. That's where I was. And now with that money, I'm going to be able to do some planning with Wendy and to know that not only are we taking care for the rest of our life, but we can also start living the lifestyle that we want to live. That's my I will. So the body of that impact story, the beginning is the I am. The middle is the I was. And the conclusion is the I will. It all goes back to the same skills that we're learning and practicing every single day in this business. If you're not clear on your intention, if you're not clear on your lesson, then you'll fumble through the words and the other person won't get it. We got to know our audience, we've got to know our intent, and then we've got to know our message. As an example, today, Tony, I think you had 3 different lessons in your head. Because I heard, and I hope it's okay, we're in a safe space for me to share this. I heard pieces of 3 different lessons and not a complete picture of any one lesson. I heard you talk about debt in 2020. I never heard 2017. I heard you talk about the overall impact of the F&A, but I never heard the specific impact to you. The more specific you are about the impact, the more the person you're talking to can relate to what you're saying. When you talk to Isaac, the general greatness of the F&A, is that really meaningful to him? Or if he's in a lot of debt, the idea that he could be out of debt 3 years earlier, that would probably be meaningful to him. When you talk to your mom, a different part of it's probably more meaningful to her. When you talk to Wendy's parents, a different part of it might be more meaningful to them. And when you talk to Claudia or Bella, you sharing the importance of the F&A becomes the main lesson. And I heard bits and pieces of all 3. So my goal is to give a structure for you to plan out these conversations. Because if you plan the conversation and then you practice with safe people, you practice with your mom, you practice with Wendy, you practice with your kids, you practice with each other, then it becomes a habit, and then it becomes natural. But it takes time to master that skill. So that's what we're going to practice today. All of us are learning a lot when it comes to our primary business right now. We're all at different stages. And everybody, sometime in the last week or the last month, learned something new in this business that would be fun and exciting to share. So I want you to take a few minutes. Your audience is a fellow associate, because that's who you're going to talk to in this room. And I want you to think about something you've learned, right? And these don't have to be like the earth-shattering breakthroughs of the world. It's just something you learned from a conversation you had with a potential client, from a conversation you had with Brett, from something you were thinking about personally when you suddenly realized that if we're in the business of selling this business, then you had to really understand the business. Whatever it is, it can be the smallest little thing. Think about a lesson that you think would be valuable to share with a fellow associate. I want you to write down, audience, and write down a couple of characteristics about a fellow associate. And I'm actually going to tell you your pairs, because maybe one fellow associate would make a difference for you than another. So Bella, I'm going to put you with Sue. Dawn, I'm going to put you with Cindy. Tony, I'm going to put you with Wade. And Bob, you can be with me. Okay? So your audience is your fellow associate. Think about a couple of characteristics about that fellow associate that would matter. Intention. What is the lesson that you're going to share? Write it down. I'm doing it too, so just like in class, when you're done, just look up and I'm gonna leave your done.
Well, when you say several characteristics of that person.
That person. Because that, knowing that person, thank you, is going to tailor how you share that lesson, right? If you're talking to me, you might talk differently than if you're talking to Sue. If you're talking to Tony, you might talk differently than if you're talking to Sue. Your intention, you got your lesson. Yeah.
One of the things you can do, this is where the ability to identify and assess comes in, because you're gonna measure, you're gonna set, the concept of 1 degree more intense kind of factors into here. Where's their understanding, where's their appreciation, where's their exposure, where's all of that stuff?
Okay, and then your message. So for your message, you want to write down what triggered the lesson. So this is your I was. And then how you're going to apply the lesson in the future, your I will. The lesson is your I am. So the message is your I was. This is what triggered it. And your I will. This is what I'm going to do with it. I'm asking you to write it down on purpose. Because this week we're all going to get together at some point with Brett. We're going to get to review this. Because part of that clarity comes from continually reviewing, reassessing, repeating. Be specific. The more specific you are. The most successful companies were those that had a very narrow target market. Were very specific about their target market, were specific about their message, and tailored their product to that target market. That's how we get successful. On your intention with your lesson, I want you to add something. What feeling do you want to convey from the lesson you're sharing? Do you want to convey your excitement? Do you want to convey your... I often get excited, so that's where I tend to go, right? Because I'm always excited about something. Do you want to convey your sense of conviction? Do you want to convey your sense of feeling safe and in control now that you know what your path is? What's the emotion that you're conveying in the story you're going to tell? And just like when Brett gives a talk for the first time, it's okay that it's clumsy the first time. Because you're going to tell this story multiple times. Okay. Let's break up into our groups and share our stories with each other. Tell the story. I'm really excited that this happened. This is how it happened. This is what I'm going to do with it. I'll work with you. Come here. Right.
So basically, the thing that I'm working on the one right now is the IMIC.
Yeah.
In terms of using the
What?
Yes.
How?
I said brain cramp. Okay. One thing I'm working on is one that's right now. It's very important. Everything.
It's the same thing.
I am steps. So
What I
you can get wide with something like I'm just wide enough for something, right? Especially what I'm trying to so historically, what I would have done is I would have just put out fires on the ground. Like so when you work so like when a customer comes in, they have a problem, like you don't jump fix a problem. Like so that's what I did. I would just put out a problem. Solve one. But that doesn't call forward. So I'm really excited right now because I'm working on why and using it to say everything that I do. Shooting out dead about that, right?
You know,
That's
maybe
that's
I don't know
where
what it's like.
it's getting wide.
Oh my
And
goodness.
What are we gonna talk about?
It's great. Confidence.
Like there's always something to learn from. Always.
Using the tools.
I didn't realize
Great. Right now, I'm just being relaxed about tools in our business.
I try to find it. Oh, but I tried it.
That's why you master it. That makes sense.
I found it very soon. You know, they can tell me whatever they're doing.
Right now.
So what I learned when I triggered it from what triggered all this was I found you know, constantly go back and forth. You know, something was going through. My view was this, you know, and why it was, and I was frustrated. And then why I was why and I realized that I was still going back. I wasn't applying everything I learned, which is everything we so
Do you think that most people operate that way?
well, every single day that we do it. And so I was judging
Are all
I
actually.
wasn't, you see what I mean? It's,
That is a big message.
I was like that. I was like, how am I gonna be able to whatever I have to like, I have a.
What we're doing them.
Also.
No, seriously, what do you think? You're telling me, what I'm hearing you say is, you're saying, okay, I'm 90% planning, that's what's an action. We're changing.
Yeah, and that
Right, that's what I was saying, remember, I was 100% actions that just unputting up, right? So you're saying the same thing, right? That you have a plan, you're using the tools, now
So
you're
allowing
just
myself
actions versus
to
more than me.
let my life and my story
You were just doing planning all the time. Now you're actually taking actions.
what it's from where I was to where I am.
You actually know what that is. 3 years ago. Saying where you were in place, right?
And then I learned that you're some of
But has your life changed from 1 year to 2 more times?
I'm not trying that. Because then you're not. So, and you're a good listener.
You realize that?
You give good feedback.
So, we're
Yeah.
we're talking about we're both talking about.
Same thing.
Oh,
Same
I
thing.
remember, yeah.
Yes.
Our actions on purpose to change our lives. That's what both saying exactly.
When he started talking, you started talking, you wanted to talk about what you wrote about. It had no context. You didn't integrate his or his conversation at all. But there was a platform for relatability. You really said, oh my gosh, you really were talking about the same thing. You're coming at it from a different perspective, because I didn't do this, I would always plan, and you would always ask. And both of us. Because if we come back to conversation now, there's a space for growth.
And we're using the same. See, the thing is, like, we're talking about 90% planning. You're still using the tools that we have in planning. You're not going off on a 40s plan. You know what I'm saying? You're going off, no, we're using primarily tools, we're using the IMC, we're using lines. You and I are actually using the same tools and describing the impact of the tool for everything, right? And instead of, that's how our library was from 22 years ago or later 7 years ago. You know what I mean? And yeah, and it's a leading book like, yeah, it's great. And now we're connected. Because we're having, and I'm 43 years old, I'm dating Atlanta, you're 21, right? You're not married, we're totally different places. So most people would say we need to be small, but we just did because of the language of the tools of business. So you can recruit a 43-year-old, if you're speaking to them, right? I can recruit a 41-year-old. Because I don't, you're a millennial, I'm the next, I'm sorry, X generation, Generation X, right? So we shouldn't be able to talk. I should be able to get off my lawn, right? But we can have a common ground. If you and I can have a common ground, you have a common ground. Because you and I are fundamentally different places.
Yeah, and there.
I keep you on that phone and just say, I was never pushed. Was never open to that. She felt safe.
Always.
So
Your intent was to share what you were making.
just focus on
That make sense?
versus
Use this
Is there like a let's try to use bonkers? It's like, no, this is still the point. Is there anything like, what am I missing? Like, what am I missing? What am I missing? And that was.
Just have your mind blown for 2 minutes.
See, that's where I was saying, like, exactly.
No.
No, I just, and you helped me get over it. I was like, holy shit! Yeah. It's not like, well, it's just
You just get along, it not be hard. You just get.
being able to move people. Like, my ability to be able to
So where are you?
I guess.
before I was and now I want to do so. I go down. Tell you my story.
But that's really what I do. So then I do so the lessons to practice exams, but it's okay. So I wrote that. I was confident since I did it before, but I was.
Why is it going to be
calm. I was much time than I needed to.
my story?
And then I spoke back.
My ability to
Okay, so you want to change the words, because if it's it's going to be there, that trigger has to occur for it to be accepted. Versus, it's an amazing feeling to be somebody it sounds intimidating, but it is huge. It's because it's the same thing. You're constantly waiting. You're constantly looking for the right conversation for it to be okay versus every step in every progress.
You see how it's
Oh shit. It clicked. It clicked for me.
Well, that's a good thing to not to get discouraged.
No, I would always get it backwards. Like,
He's good, he's good.
That's fantastic.
But I told him that that's what my
it is. Are you in or out? Because we were able to learn our thing.
when someone comes up here and says, I don't know if I can do business, I say, well, I understand.
And these finance guys, these are the worst. They're not open. What's going to tell you that? Open
You would have
it.
been like, oh, I got this. If I would have concentrated that move. The best thing that could have happened.
Really,
Man, how many people are going to be charging way
so
more people
it's pretty
are going to
exciting.
get 35 years. That there's you know what that feels, you know what it feels like to be comfortable and to go in, to be relate, you know, like, it's the single.
How much better is it going to be when you sit down?
I just did it. I just did the conversation. The opportunity to recognize where we are, to be able to know where we go, to be able to know where pieces are. That's the simple. So one of the things that we want is to enthusiasm, right? I was listening to that we're not forcing ourselves to be excited about something that we're not really excited about. It's genuinely understanding the progress.
But it always is.
When we can truly understand that we're measuring growth, and that the growth isn't an ability that allows us to come to understand growth. If we don't, the market and we're simply manipulating ourselves, and we're supposed to be positive, it comes across completely.
The
more you grow, the more
Now we feel like a victim that's not allowed to be.
Fluid, how much
in the
more fluid,
it's irrelevant to the marketplace.
Yeah. And this is where
I know.
It is.
No, it doesn't like a math problem.
If we're in business,
and how
if
I
we're
would
in
like
financial
to
services, get to that, it's failure. That's a high funding. But we're not real distribution. This is a really critical point. Why is it? I don't know if it's again. Because we're in the distribution, there's also constantly creating people that are going to pay on the same path. If we feel bad about the path that we're on, when someone else is on that and does the exact same thing, we're gonna placate them. We're gonna be like, oh, that's okay. Even inside, you're like, right? It's inevitable. But everyone will go through that. And maybe it's not experience, maybe it's this, maybe it's this, but our entire business is about one step and the next. And when we are in this, our business is distribution. We celebrate our failures and our successes because it gets us that next step. And not about perfection. So it's because.
Well, and when I know that I'm gonna pass it, I can say, look, it started there.
But a month ago, you didn't. See, for me, you want to know the most exciting thing? She actually said, that's huge because we had this and then all giving and then mom and then kids and then this and we gotta go in and we're not feeling all this other stuff. Like, you started that process. That's enormous. Because it's inevitable that you guys will improve your skill. Like, I have no doubt that you're gonna learn it, but what we can't do is learn it until we start it.
So you're good. That was progress.
I know.
Tell me more, tell me more.
That's why she, like, when I just moved out of the SEC, dude, I never.
going into the same kind of position.
In the back of my head, a little person's like, that's freaking awesome.
Oh, right.
Because there's, you can ask, you can walk down the street, what is SEC?
Okay, great.
And you'll be like, what are you talking about? Right, and learning that language.
They come mix them back together.
Yeah.
Then Brett is gonna do it. Constantly, I'm just passing the screen, right?
Wade, what lesson did Tony share with you?
Tony shared with me basically how he was using the tools of the MIC and of getting wide in the strategy portion of what he was doing. And he realized that he was doing 90% strategy and 10% action, but he was excited that he knew he could grow that action so that he was like, that's a very fixable problem. It's not a problem, it's a very fixable solution or challenge. And so, and then he also, Tony shared with me that he realized though that even planning to move the ball forward and is a skill in of itself, and himself a few years ago was all action, but he didn't have any organizational plan. So that he was excited in realizing that.
Great. And we're sharing these lessons because all of these lessons are important for each other to hear, but we don't have enough time for everybody to talk to everybody. Cindy, what was Dawn's lesson?
We talked about, the topic was studying for the securities, and her lesson was that she took the test and didn't get the score that she thought she would. And at first, she felt bummed out about it, but then that was her I am, and then she told me that I will is to dedicate more time to studying, which will increase her test score, and not to feel bummed out about it because it's part of learning and growing. So the feelings were there, like, oh, I'm kind of bummed about it, but then it's like, you're going to get better with practice. So.
Dawn, why was that important to share with Cindy?
I think it's what I wanted to talk about, and then when I got partnered up with Cindy, we're in the same place. So we're on the same journey. I felt safe enough to share it with her because we're all part of the team. So I think it was great that we paired up, and that was what I was planning on saying all along.
Yes. And so now Cindy, if Cindy's in that space ever, she can refer back to your experience. One, she has a reference point for not spending a bunch of time being bummed about it, and she has a person she can turn to share with. Tony, what was Wade's lesson?
It's funny as Brett came along, and it's the same connection we have. And
Tony, I'm going to stop you for a minute because I'm going to teach you to answer just my question. What was Wade's lesson?
he was, so at first what he was doing is getting wide on his audience, getting wide on it, and he wasn't focusing on the message, on the intent of the message, and so you're getting wide with planning for it as well. And so what he's going to be doing now is kind of having the intent and developing the message to execute.
So Wade's lesson was to change his intent
To do more execution.
and to focus on execution. Wade, was that your lesson?
Uh,
That lesson you intended to convey?
No, so the lesson I intended to convey is that now I'm getting wide on moving the ball forward, and I'm excited that I have an organizational plan to do that. Where historically, what I would do is just put out flyers all the time, which didn't move the ball forward. It just kind of kept me kind of put in place. So I have to work on my storytelling.
Got it. Well, not necessarily. I mean,
Well, no, I
it's-
mean I have
it's-
to. I have to
Right,
work on my-
right. Communication is on the responsibility of the communicator.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that Tony did hear that there was a change in what you're getting wide on.
Right, you did.
So this is helpful, right? Because Wade's a great communicator generally. And so it's also really paying attention to checking in after we're done. And I didn't include that as part of the assignment. But this is just the next step that we're going to be looking at is checking in to see if what we're trying to communicate is getting communicated.
Yeah, because I wasn't paying any attention. I was actually doing, because Brett came in and he was talking about how Tony was just listening to what I had to say, and then he could have incorporated what I said and what he said, but he told a different story. I was probably doing similarly the same thing, whereas I wasn't checking in with Tony. I wasn't like, hey, does this make sense to you? I wasn't looking for interactive listening skills for him. I just said what I was going to say and then hoped he got it. So that probably is not the best way to communicate. That's how I communicate a lot, so I probably have to work on that.
Well, and it's good for us, right? It's good for us to know that, because a lot of times, and the only reason I put this out here is not because it was part of this assignment, right? We're going to work on that. But when we get into situations where we're practicing storytelling, we often get so engrossed in the effort of our own storytelling that we do forget that we're actually telling it to someone else for a particular purpose.
Well, because I told it in a way that I would have received it exactly how I was telling it, because that's how I told it.
Which is
you know
good.
what I'm saying? So,
Yes.
but almost no one receives information how I receive information, so I have to be more cognizant of my audience.
Yeah, so that's an opportunity. And
Hopefully
we'll practice that more, right? Once we get really good at telling the story, then we can integrate the other person into that story. Dawn, Cindy's lesson real quick.
Cindy, her message was to be flexible and don't be disappointed when appointments are canceled or rescheduled.
Okay, good. I like it. Sue, Bella's lesson.
We talked about more than one, so,
Give me one.
okay, let's just go. with
Give me the
last-
one that you think is most important for this room to hear. How about that?
They're all important. Okay,
Okay, rattle them off. Okay, so if you can't, then she didn't communicate
no,
it.
it's not her fault. It's not her fault. Okay, it's not her fault. I haven't processed everything, and so I don't recall that fast.
Okay, well, and so just so
that's
you know,
not her fault.
no,
That's
but
my fault.
actually, this is helpful. This is helpful.
That's me.
Communication is still on the communicator.
No, it's
It
not her
is.
fault.
So, but that would imply, Sue,
Very
that whenever I talk to you, if I know, right, I'm going to learn something about how the person I'm talking to processes information. That's my job as the communicator, and that's 100% okay, right? That's part of knowing our audience. So you tell me, what was the lesson that you wanted to communicate?
To Sue?
Yes. Tell me one lesson.
The lesson that I wanted to communicate to Sue is what I learned from her. And then I jumped from what I learned from her since the time that I've been here. And
So
then
tell me just what did you learn from Sue?
I didn't realize that every day that I was coming in, I was looking forward to always seeing Sue. It was just kind of like a routine. Oh, I'm gonna see Sue today. But I didn't realize until, was it Thursday, that the reason why I was so excited about coming to see Sue was because I always learned something from her. She's a great storyteller.
Fantastic. There you go. That's a great lesson.
Yeah.
I love it. And what lesson did you get from Sue?
Sue, when Sue was telling me her story, Sue has a great skill, which is to be able to let people feel safe and be open. Because she told a story about somebody who she's been, cultivating a relationship with, and she's now open to coming and doing the business with us. And the only reason she's open to that is because Sue cultivated this relationship with her over years.
Awesome. Fantastic. One of the interesting things that came up in the last week is the difference between bragging and humility and confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So it is important that we can share things about ourselves that we're good at with confidence and still feel that we're being humble. Because being confident and bragging are two different things. And one of the challenges, I think, in part of that lesson is, Sue, if you actually relayed that lesson, you would have had to say to me, well, Bella thinks I'm a phenomenal storyteller. And we're not always good at sharing that information about ourselves. That's hard to process to begin with. So this is a space for us to be confident. And we don't look at it, right, as the other way. Yeah, last piece.
A really powerful tool for that, though, what you're talking about, is if we do the I was, because the I was inherently will always make us appear humble. Because if Sue says, I used to think, everyone has some doubt, right? So if Sue says, well, I always thought that I wasn't a very good storyteller, or I wasn't as good as I wanted to be. I was a good storyteller, but I was never as good as I wanted to be. And I got really excited because I talked to Bella, and Bella told me that she thought I was an awesome storyteller, and that made me feel so great. So you're not bragging, because you're using that. The I was such a powerful tool for that.
That is absolutely correct. And everyone else can actually do it, and Wade and I will appear to not be bragging by doing it.
Can I say something else?
Yes.
And I think this really touched Sue, because Sue almost went into tears because of this. When I came back to the base shop, remember, I came back just as an advocate. I was here only to be an advocate. I wasn't even going to do the business. And this is huge. This is coming from somebody who did the business, who believes in the business, who understands the business. And, you know, I'll tell the story over and over. By the end of the off night, I was sitting, you know, grabbing onto a chair going, oh, I'm not going to do this, but I'm going to do this. But the reason why is, I didn't realize that from the beginning, the reason why I was open, and it also, one of the major reasons why I was feeling so safe was Sue was the very first one who was just like, she didn't call me Bella, when she called me Claudia, she made me feel safe and warm. And every time it's been safe and warm with Sue, and how are you doing, or a hug, and you know, how's it going? And it's always been like that. Every single AA'z night, and every single time I'm in this office, it's Sue. Sue made me feel safe and warm every single time. Awesome. And she's awesome at doing that. I don't think she realizes how awesome she is at that.
I love that. I love that. Yes. So your assignments this week: storytelling, 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 storytelling. You told a story today. You shared a lesson today. That is a lesson that you can share with someone else in your life or someone else in the business. You can absolutely share these lessons with Jimmy, right? You have an opportunity to share these lessons with other folks who are taking securities next. Tony, Wendy, taking securities next. Tony has an opportunity to share his lessons with Wendy, with his family. Your job is to tell stories. And even when it's not just about Primerica, because it's the practice of telling stories. It's the skill of telling stories that we want to grow, we want to build. So this week, we focus on 10% planning and 90% execution. Thank you.
So I'm gonna kind of, the last 20 minutes is gonna be piggybacking on what we just did. Because in what we're doing, right, that we are in, again, if our business is distribution and our product is the business, creating that space becomes really, really important. Part of one of the conversations is, why are we having the conversation that we're having, right? What is it that we're trying to impact, right? Because that becomes a significant part of the story. If we So they're in the exact same business. They have the same license, and they're in the process of getting the same licenses, right? Bob and Don, married, own a house, full-time job, have kids in college, right? And are over 25, right? Tony, 21 years old, lives at home, just got a job that's kind of building. Not married, no kids. Okay. In the same business. Recruited by the same person. Okay. So I recruited both of them. We recruited both of them to the exact same business. How is that possible? Okay, well, yes, there's a space for everybody, but there's got to be a skill in order to deliver that space. Can I talk to, do you think that we talk to Bob and Don and Tony about the same things to get them both interested and excited at the same time? Probably not, huh? Why? Because when I talked to Bob and Don about a financial game plan.
That was it, man. That was it.
Right? The ability to, oh my gosh, we're going to be able to retire. We're going to be able to put our kids to college. We're going to be able to eliminate the debt. We're going to be able to do this. We're going to do this. Holy shit, my entire life, no one showed us this stuff. Right? And you just heard it. That wasn't my intention. I thought I was going to go, Don. If you heard Don, there was some strength in it. Yeah. That was it. Right? Tony's been here for 9 months and just figured out what F&A means. It's a little bit of a joke and not really, right? I mean, the basis of this morning's meeting was Tony going, oh my God, this tool's kind of cool. Why is that important? Understanding who your audience is critical. Bob and Don are my audience. Tony's my audience. Understanding that. Understanding the intent is the audience. There is an important component of what's going on. And understanding the message is a key component because they're different messages to do the exact same thing. And so when we're communicating and we're telling stories and we're talking, one of the things that we want to be able to do, the moment Sue said that Bella talked about a bunch of things, we knew that there was going to be confusion. Because the purpose of the conversation wasn't multiple things. The purpose of the conversation was a very specific intent and get good at the skill of influence and impacting one. Right? To keep going back. That was the intent of what this was. Why? Because when Tony came up and he talked about what happened, right? Robin said, he talked about 3 different stories and none of them were fleshed out. And so we didn't quite get the impact, but when Sears cleaned up the different ones, we understood the possibility of the 3 impacts. That was done prior to, right, what the program was going to be about, right? And then we went to do and did the same. Now, look, this has to be a safe place and we've got to be able to point this stuff out. This is game field, right? If we're going to be professionals right here, one of the things you do, right? If you're a professional hitter, you're going to watch game field. Like, it's just where things go. We've got to look for these opportunities to see where our roadblocks are. Because otherwise it takes years. Because this is hard stuff until it's not. And the moment it's not, it's the easiest thing in the world once it's easy. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Right? The intent was, right, if Bella's talking with Sue, I want Sue to feel amazing about how she feels and how she made me feel about her communication because I've watched the power and importance of storytelling. Right? If that's the intent, now you don't have to go, well, I said it once, so I can't say anything else but we can fill out that picture and everything's about making that picture happen. Does that make sense? Why? Because very different people. I've got to talk to Tony about the fact, that he can build a business over the long term. He can develop the skills. He can learn the skills. He's got it. I talked to Bob and Don about, look at all the skills you've already cultivated and developed. All we've got to do is harness them and be able to go through because you've learned so much of this. We're still talking about skills, but we're talking about it with a vastly different intent. Here, I'm giving Tony a safe space to go, oh my God, I found a place I can learn these skills. Here is, I can value the skills we have, and all we've got to do is harness them, and I can introduce new things for them to go. Right? Why? Because I want both of them moving forward in the business and charging and harnessing the skills, but they're 2 different stories. If I get confused, there's no way I can recruit both of these people right around the exact same time to the same business if I'm not clear.
And if I give too many messages to one person on my scout team or an advocate, they're not going to know what to turn to. You can give a different message each time, but you really only want to give one so that they can be clear on that one.
Is this making sense? Mm-hmm. And it's such a critical moment because we're all learning so much. But being able to recruit people into your corners, right? Every time I meet with Bella, the conversation is over is, okay, what'd you get from it? That's a skill to be able to synthesize it. Tony, your ability to synthesize what you're getting, what you're listening to, and then feed it back. That's what, if I were you, one of the things I would do right now is interested in all of you, but specifically Tony, is I would get really good at feeding back what I've learned to the person that I'm talking to so that I can make sure that the language that I'm feeding back makes sense. Because we have a synthesization dilemma, right? And so if you told Wade, so are you basically saying, which is a phrase you can just say. So you basically saying, and if you would have said the same thing, Wade would have gone, no, that's not what I'm basically saying. Here's what I'm saying, and then he gets to clarify it, and you get a work to get on the same page. That's a skill that you can develop if you have a challenge articulating back messages.
Well, and think about if both people are doing that. If I'm talking to Tony and I'm checking in with him, it's like, does that make sense? And I'm doing that, and Tony's like, are you saying this? Think about how quickly we can communicate things and how efficiently and how good, so that if we're working together, or that's being coachable, both of us as a coach and as someone being coached. If Tony's coaching me on something and I'm doing that with him, I can understand what he's trying to coach me on.
We do that all the time.
We do it all the time. Why? Guys, we've all done this. You're at a dinner party. Okay, come here for a second. Come here. Okay, so we're at a dinner party and we have a group of people. Come here for a second. Come here, stand up for a second. I'm like, oh my God, come here. That was so amazing. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great one. Great. Give a hug. Thank you so much. Have fun. Go out the door for a second. Come on. So we go. The moment this door closes, oh my God, like, she was awesome, man. Aren't we breaking down what occurred?
Right.
And if she's in the car, she's on the way back, right? She's doing the exact same thing on the phone, all of it. When you walk out of your client's house, they turn to each other and they say something. Why'd we let them come over? How many of you have ever walked out of a house where you know that's exactly what they said about you when you left? I know I have. That's every assessment, every conversation. Get in the skill of being able to articulate it. Why? Because we have to, as a story, if you can describe this conversation to somebody else, you're going to describe it in a story. You're going to get good at that skill. But then you get to go, we all have people that aren't here this morning. There's somebody that we could have had that was here. Oh, you missed it. Right? Talk to Wendy. Wendy couldn't make it this morning. How is she going to ask about the meeting today? Because she comes to Saturdays. She didn't make it. Is she going to ask? Yeah. What are you going to say? It was good. Oh my God, there was so much.
Life-changing, and you missed it.
Yeah. Or oh my God, we did this and then 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 this. But like 12% of each of these, and she's like more confused than. What would you like, Wendy? What would you like, Jim? What would you like, Dudu? What would you like, Krista? What would you like to feel about this morning? The people that are on your team that weren't able to make it this morning, what would you like them to get from the conversation you're going to have with them about this morning? Guilt? That doesn't serve, but some people will do that. Frustration? That doesn't serve, but some will do that. Or is there something that you got that you could say, it's funny. For the last blank, I thought I was good at, and I realized, or I learned, or I watched, and couldn't you give one great piece of what this morning was about in a clear, concise way to another human being where they went, oh my God, that's amazing, which does two things. It increases your credibility. It gives them the opportunity to learn what you learned, and it increases the value of Saturday morning. But that's a purposeful skill on building and moving people. That's what Robin's talking about. That's what this interaction was about. Right? Is this making sense? Because some of you look excited and some of you look like I just like peeing your Cheerios, right? I'm sorry. Like that, right? But this is because, and why this matters. See, you want both these people in your business? The two freaking amazing people, amazing couples with opportunities to do amazing things. The reach is amazing for both of them. You can do remarkable opportunities in front of them. But pretty different worlds. Different values, different structures, different beliefs, different ideologies, different relationships, different skill sets. There's way less in common than is in common, and yet they're sitting next to each other, like each other, and building a business as partners. what we're talking about is critical. It's not a luxury. The work we did today is critical. Why did you want to communicate what you wanted to communicate? Did you want to communicate what your intent was? Was it for you to talk or was it for you to influence? Did you say what you wanted to say because you wanted to say it? Or did you want to explain what you learned in order to influence and impact the person you were communicating with? Because if you simply explain, you had the intent, I learned this and I want you to know what I learned, that is something. But what's the benefit? If the benefit isn't to influence and move the person, to increase the skill, to be able to draw a connection, to be able to do something, then what are we doing? Is it making sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Guys, we're close. Now, here's the really one of the amazing fun things of this. There's nothing this morning that's new. There's nothing that we haven't been talking about. We're harnessing skills. We're confronting where we are. We all are identifying an I am. Some of us are excited about that I am. Some of us aren't that comfortable about that I am. It simply is where it is. But the opportunity to see the direction that we're going, because both of these couples can be recruited in the business at the exact same time. But can't be recruited the exact same way.
And once they're recruited, they can talk to each other. They'll all be on the same team.
The skills, the resources, the commonality, and they get to learn from each other if we can do this. If we learn this the right way, you understand that Bob and Don don't know how to recruit Tony, and Tony doesn't know how to recruit Bob and Don because Tony doesn't know how to relate to Bob and Don don't know how to relate to Tony, right? They have kids his age, right? It's really easy, literally, it's easy to parent people, but that doesn't recruit. But if they learn this stuff and they get good at these conversations, they can actually help bridge the gaps of what the priority is, and they get to listen and influence. Now all of a sudden we all become dramatically better recruiters. We have the ability to be strategic partners and actually grow. So we want to learn the storytelling and tell these stories, but we're telling in order to influence and to make an impact. It's the critical component of what we're doing because that's how we move people, because our business is distribution. Which means we need to attract and retain people. We need to get them through the process, get them to believe and understand what we're doing so that they can get into rookie camp, go see their top 10, so that we can build them a support system and move and impact the people's lives. Because the people's lives, there's no one on the planet other than Wendy that's going to get someone to sit down with Wendy's parents. There's literally no financial services company in the industry that's going to get Wendy's parents to let them come over. But us. Their only shot is our methodology. That was awesome today. Thank you. Thank you guys all for being open. Listen, if you got poked in the eyes a little bit, right? If there's something that was said today by anybody that bothered you, good. Good. Because you have to identify some stuck areas.
And this is the month to do it, right? This is the month to identify your stuck areas, to get together with your coaches, to get together with Brett, get together with me, work through these stories. This is the greatest opportunity for storytelling. It's the most time we get together with new people and our families to share these stories so that we can prepare and kick off for Q1 next year.
So the last thing, and we'll be done. Here's what I would love for everybody to do. Take a piece of paper at some point this weekend, write it from 1 to 10, and give language to 10 things you've learned. 10 things you're excited about in 2016 professionally. 10 things, 2015, that you're able to give some, and it could be big and it could be little. It could be a reminder of the value of a financial game plan, right? 2015, you had a plan, but it reminded you how special that is. Write that down. Right? The ability to, right, eliminate judgment and to be able to identify where this comes from. That's a fundamental piece. The ability to remember where we came from and where we're going. The ability to have a safe space to enjoy progress. The ability to learn to synthesize feedback or the need to, whatever it is. What are 10 things that you are excited about from 2015? And then write the stories. And then when you get into a conversation with someone in your life, you have your little piece of paper and go, which one of these 10 might fit this conversation? For the impact to them, not so that you can just tell a story. We'll see you guys next Saturday. Love you all. Big. Thank you guys all for this.